So remember that they're changing my voice. Also, childish and racist hate groups at work for the government are fuming and poisoning me every day. I have 23 witnesses on record. I am not gay, and the people who are doing this are concerned with upholding the rape by deception construct and torturing people in various ways. Okay, remember that they are changing my voice. I have a video coming soon about why it is fair to fire back at oppressor groups, even if you mention their race. You'll see that I'm right. But this video is about Palestine. Palestine and Israel have been clashing, right? Clearly, since the Zionist movement started bringing in settlers there was a marked increase in the region of the clashes between Jews and Muslims. We look back at the history of the Ottoman Empire, 1948 war, 1967, the first and second Intifada, and so on and so forth. It is clear what is going on, right? They're stealing land for them. And Palestinians have died in the process. And when we look at the numbers, they're nowhere near as large of, there's nowhere near the amount of casualties in the region as there are in the rest of the world due to starvation alone. So we see that they're using this to sort of reinforce people's conceptions of racial supremacy, who to date, who to hire, what have you. And part of the problem is that lots of people don't understand that morality is more important than dating and money. I've never truly chased money in my entire life, and I'm 42 years old, and I haven't dated anyone in, I think 5 years or so, because morality is more important. I have a higher sense of things, right? I'm the top martial artist. I can outmaneuver anyone at sparring even now because my brain allows me to sense things better. God set me apart, mind, body, soul, and spirit, as the top martial artist ever possible. So when it comes to quality of living, I am the expert. I used to live in a house that is now worth $5 million, swimming pool, stables, orchard, and all. I'm the son of 2 doctors. My father's a brain surgeon. I scored top 1 percentile in the SSATs and got into a very competitive boarding school. And because of the way the school system's structured, because of the way people think, because of how boring things are, right? It's even called the Board of Education in a society where wordplay is extremely common. Like the word mention, men shun. Who's being shunned and who's not? The word together, to get her. And there's many words like this, right? The ice and the practice, the ice and the justice. And in many places in Africa, pretty much all of Africa, okay, snow is pretty much unheard of. Ice is pretty much unheard of. In terms of, ice that, you put in your refrigerator and so on and so forth. Okay. So as we look at this thing, we can see that the whole world is structured in a way to favor racists so they can be rapists. The word racist is like the word rapist. We see that politicians, even when they're controlled opposition like Ilhan Omar, are saying that they're being harassed, they're being stalked. These are people who have, people with them. Okay? I've been isolated from all my potential allies to the point where I'm more often alone than not. She's the type of person that she's married, and last I checked, and she has friends, people standing with her when she gives speeches, and they're still harassing her. And that has to do with the process of enforcing racial supremacy. They want people to think of her as a black politician who's not very well connected. Because in society, if you want to be very well connected, you need to be white, Jewish, or LGBT is the idea. And certain types of these people, right? They have certain social orders. It's a white power structure. It's not one white power position that all white people share. It's a structure with rich and poor alike. That's what privilege is. Just because a poor white person who's homeless doesn't have as much privilege as the wealthiest white person or the most connected white person, doesn't mean that they don't have privilege. And so you see people who try to separate these issues. They say, well, because there's a war in Palestine, that they want you to focus on Palestinian problems or Israeli problems and not the 9 million people who are starving to death a year. So when Ilhan Omar gave her speech, it was about children who suffer when bombs land. What about children who are starving to death right now? Why those children are suffering when bombs land? They're getting aid. They're probably going to get a lot of aid. They're probably going to all but solve their hunger issues. But what about the masses of people who starve, the 10,000 children who starve elsewhere in the world every day? The 25,000 adults, the 9 million people who starve to death and die of hunger-related issues every year. What about them? What about the fact that the children are the future, a future that has no moral path in the future because of generational injustice, because of who's been breeding with who and why? What about war brides and human trafficking and child trafficking? We see people getting assaulted here in America. The domino effect. What is the domino effect? The domino effect of Palestinians, and it comes from Palestinians being slaughtered. Okay. And then what about the domino effect of the 9 million people who starve to death every year for white people to pretend, white Jews and LGBT people to pretend that they're superior, and for their sexual control? The main reason I haven't dated in 5 years is because attractive females are shunning me because I haven't embraced white social norms. Here in America, there are many organizations, groups, and government groups and entities that enforce strict dating rules. There are sex cults, there's police and military, they have dating rules. Okay, there's teachers with their dating rules. There's corporations, and they watch who their employees date. There's social clubs. There's sororities are only supposed to date fraternities and vice versa. There's a bunch of groups. There's gangs, and there's various groups like that. There's religious groups with their dating ideas. And the government determines which of these groups is allowed, right? They call it canceling culture, right? Cancel culture. There's LGBT groups that tell their members that they are supposed to only date people who are LGBT friendly. There's conservative people that tell their members to only date conservatives. There's a lot of dating rules here. And the military helps to enforce them. Law enforcement, right? Law and order, social order, pecking order, and picking order. So as they say, the children are the future. The main reason society has no moral path in the future isn't because 9 million people are starving to death a year, as tragic as that is. It is the reason why that is occurring. Who bred with who already? Why do the rest of the people in the world allow this to happen? Why does the governing class? Why do their proxies, their puppet leaders allow this to happen? Why is there foreign policies? They have governments manipulating people there, powerful people in those nations, and they have corporations manipulating the powerful people in those nations. Everything from diamonds to people who extort them for their food. They take their food in exchange for weapons, and people starve. And there's all kinds of stuff like this that occurs. They have all kinds of GMO agendas and other agendas. They want to control conceptions of health and who is healthy and who seems healthy, because health and wealth and image are connected.